around here. Here too. Yep, we're live. See, I like that banner. I like that. Dope. That's dope. I like that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that. All right, let's go into.
Welcome to Let's Talk with Dr. Robin. In this podcast, topics will be discussed that promote the daily management of life. While this information is meant to supplement your journey towards healthy emotional well-being, it is not intended to take the place of seeing a licensed mental health professional. I am Dr. Robin C. Wiley, a licensed clinical social worker with a private therapy practice in New Jersey. Thank you for joining today's conversation. Good morning, everybody, and happy Monday. Welcome to Let's Talk with Dr. Robin. I am Dr. Robin C. Wiley, and I am joined today by my producer, Bryce. Hey, Bryce.
Hey, what's going on? How's everybody? How are you?
I'm good. We are in a new week.
Yep.
And you know, when you think about a new week, you think about Monday, you think about like, look, we can get some stuff done.
Yep.
How are we going to make this a great week? How are we going to make it a great day?
Yep.
How are we going to stay in the moment? So.
And I'll be honest with you, Monday is, if I have any days of the week that are like my least favorite, it's Monday. Not today, though, for some reason. Well, I know the reason.
Right. I know the reason. I think we are. Right. I think when you're off on Monday, it's like, ooh, it's a whole better day.
It's a better day.
Yeah. I think it's, and I think sometimes Mondays for people are tough because you start with the Sunday starts the journey into Monday. It's like, oh, we're about to be into Monday. Yes. Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
So, but we're going to make it a great week.
Yes, indeed.
Just a little housekeeping first. Remember to share and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Let's Talk with Dr. Robin. As we're bringing you, hopefully helpful information each week. We're normally on Sunday mornings, but yesterday was a holiday, and so we moved it to today. On today's episode, we're doing a remix. So this was our a podcast that we did on Apple before, and it was entitled "The Journey to Wellness." And so today on the show, we're discussing how to create intentional wellness. Okay.
I love the topic.
You're gonna take like a pause for that, right? I have to take a pause.
I love the topic, and I love what it comes after too, because it comes after Easter, the holiday, and it's like, you know what? The journey to wellness, right? Because that's what we all want, though, right?
Right. Exactly. Ultimately, yes, we all want to be well. We all want to have that balance and all that kind of stuff. So, certainly I think this will probably be a springboard for some other conversations, some other podcast topics. But of course, for today, we're going to go. We got some work being done outside. Yeah. So I'm laughing. Too, right? I'm laughing about that, right? Like, we're like, wait a minute. So we don't want nobody, we're not in a, we're okay. We're all right. Just some yard work and stuff going on outside.
Some neighbors are doing things.
Yes. So first, when we think about wellness, okay, so first, and I'm very big on people defining things for themselves. Like that is one of my big things, because we take sometimes this approach of letting external forces define how we should be or what we should be doing. And I really would love for us to get away from that. We have to define things for ourselves. So I'm always about, what does this need to look like for you? Right. How does it fit in your life? Right. And so, so I'm telling you this information in that context.
Right.
So first, what is wellness? And I'm going to go through some examples and some areas and that type of thing. But how do we define that for ourselves? What does it mean for you? So there's some questions we can ask ourselves to sort of define that. It's what do you need, or what do you feel you need in your life to be well? To actually feel like you are, and what does well mean? What does wellness mean? Is that about balance? Is that about feeling that you're at certain levels or certain areas in your life where you've accomplished things, where you are feeling good about where you are in specific areas, or where does there need to be some change? Where does there need to be some intervention? So
adjustments. Absolutely.
Right. So it's, what do you need in your life to be well? What do you need in your life to feel well?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you need in your life to live well? Okay, so we're going a little deep today.
Oh yeah. I'm pondering already. Right.
So when you think about wellness, you may want to think about assessing where you are in certain areas of your life. Mm-hmm. And even though I'm giving a general list here, but people could probably break this down a little bit further, or add some other areas. And also it's about maybe setting some appropriate goals for yourself, like where you want to be in these particular areas. So because a lot of times when we think about wellness, we think about the physical aspect. We think about my health, my physical health. How am I eating? Am I active? Am I going to the doctor? That kind of stuff. When we think about wellness in general, we tend to gravitate towards the physical part.
Right.
I'm suggesting that there's other areas where wellness comes into play. Wellness, and these areas, and I'm going to go through them as the list first, and then I'll kind of give a little bit of information about each one. So, of course, we have the physical. We're not taking away the physical. We have mental and emotional.
Okay.
We have spiritual, we have intellectual, social, occupational, financial, and environment. So one might think that, well, wait a minute, how does all that have to do with wellness? So I'm gonna break it down. Give me a second. I'm gonna get there in a second. So think about all these areas are interconnected. So if you look at your life as living a life of wellness, of being, prioritizing your well-being in general, that usually is not just about one area.
Yeah, so it's different.
Yeah, it has to be, because we're not just a, one-dimensional person. We're multidimensional. There's a lot of different layers to all of us. And there's a lot of different layers to life in general. So think of those areas as interconnected, as where all of them can contribute to your well-being.
Right.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. So now let's dig a little deeper into each one. So we have the physical. So of course, we know that's taking care of our bodies, what we consume, what we put in our bodies, and many of us, myself included, have taken a journey of health and wellness, and I mean a consistent journey, because that's the thing. Like, we can at times in our lives, I'm gonna eat better, I'm gonna work out a little bit more, but making some bigger steps and taking some steps into following up on that and really prioritizing that, because there is a mind-body connection.
Yes.
And this goes way back beyond anything I, as Dr. Robin, could ever come up with. This is way beyond all of us. This goes way back in time to great philosophers of the idea, if the mind and the body are interconnected. If our mind isn't right, our body won't be right. If our body isn't right, our mind won't be right.
Yep.
And so those two parts of us, they feed off of each other.
Right.
And so we can't negate the physical sense. We can't negate taking care of our physical. And we know that exercise and that kind of stuff helps our mood.
Right.
We know that can help us. That's, research has shown that.
Very critical too. It's so critical.
Yeah, it is critical. It is critical. But also too, and I always think about what we put in our bodies, what we consume, taking care of ourselves, what that really means, taking care of our bodies. And also, following up on going to the doctor, being aware of our medical, our physical, dental, whether it's eyesight, all of those kinds of things, all of those things are important.
Are critical, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. The next is the mental and emotional. So looking at, how do we deal with stress? What types of emotions do we feel are more prominent in our day-to-day life?
Right.
What are we feel? Are we feeling more increased sadness? Are we feeling more increased, worry or anxiousness? Do we feel indifferent to things? And sometimes with the mental and emotional, it's, this is also about, mindset, how we think about things, how we approach things in our day-to-day living. And sometimes that can include, setting boundaries, which we've touched upon a little in some previous shows, and I'm sure we'll get into more so as we go forth. But the setting boundaries, because a lot of times there are external things that are impacting us emotionally,
right?
And they impact our ability to feel like we are balanced and well in that area of our life.
Yeah.
So, so that can mean anything from taking more time for self-care to seeing a therapist, to taking a vacation, to, or just taking a nap. It could be, because you got to think there's different factors related to all these areas. So what I'm saying to our audience is, making sure that you are looking at where you are right now in these areas.
Right.
And then looking at, okay, are there goals that I need to set for myself also in these areas? Are there places that I want to be, and how do I get there?
And boundaries is not, and I'm assuming that, and I don't like to assume, but I am going to assume, I'm assuming that when you say boundaries, it's also like who we give access with that.
Yes, which we're going to get into that. No, you're right.
I always
do
that.
No, you're right, though. You're right. We're going to get into that because that comes into a little bit with the social
piece
and the environment.
Okay.
Also, yes. I
got you.
And next we get into spiritual, and spiritual versus, I say spiritual versus religion or religious because many people, we subscribe to different things. We have different beliefs.
Right.
So it's choosing a practice that suits you, whatever that practice is. For some people, it is going into a more organized religion, going to church every week. For some people, it's about meditation. It's about mindfulness. It depends on what it is. So the spiritual is really about a time period in your day, in your week
that you're devoting,
that you are devoting time to whatever it is you believe in, but also too, it is a time of calmness, of trying to bring something into your space that allows you to be calm and be in the moment, be present. And again, you have to define that for you.
Right.
And sometimes, people have goals in this area. They want to start a meditative practice, or they want to become more involved in, this could even be about, the practice of gratitude, and how that brings in some peace and happiness and fulfillment into our life.
Right.
Next, we have the intellectual. And I said intellectual, but, and this is, again, is going into mindset, and so our knowledge base, like we should constantly be working to increase our knowledge about whatever is of interest to us. So, we want to keep the brain is a muscle. We need to keep the brain moving. We need to keep the brain active too. So the intellectual is, whether that is, some people will talk about, I want to read more, or I want to spend more time, learning about a certain activity or whatever, but also thinking about what we put into our brain. What we bring into our consciousness, whether that is, and don't get me wrong, I am someone who will watch some shows.
Reality.
Yeah,
reality.
Not often. It's usually someone, I have to say, and look, how you blame it on somebody else. It's usually, if I'm around someone, we're watching like a certain show, I'll get drawn into that show. So it's nothing wrong with having something that is like a mindless activity that doesn't require a lot of you. Right. But you don't want to do that too often. You want to bring in information into you that is, empowering you, that is contributing to your well-being, whatever that means. So, and podcasts do that, hopefully this show does
Absolutely
that,
does.
And so it's about information that makes you think a little bit, that helps you to work that brain, so that you are thinking, not deep all the time, but thinking about things more meaningful, thinking about things that are a little bit deeper into your subconscious.
So like a good balance.
Right. You want to have a good balance.
A good balance.
Yes. You want to have a good balance.
That y'all work is really.
It is.
Oh my God.
Okay. So yes, this is.
Yeah. This was not scheduled.
This was not scheduled.
This was scheduled. That's all right.
Right. That is the, that's the benefits. I don't know why I would say benefits. Benefits probably not the best, but the aspects of going live and not knowing when they're going to be cutting trees outside.
It's all good.
So yeah, but we're good. Because that's the other thing too with mindset. If I go in with there's this, I'm working with, a business, Simply Fitness, and Gail Givens, who has been a personal trainer of mine, and I'm working with some stuff with her.
Right.
And she talks about this momentum mindset.
Right.
And the idea that a momentum mindset is about consistency in whatever you're doing. So when you think about mindset in general,
right.
Mindset helps us on how we view something through what context.
Right. No, absolutely.
So like what's happening now, I could say, oh my God, our show is ruined because there's this background noise or what have you.
Right.
However, if you shift your mindset or reframe your thinking about something, then it allows you to not see something as a catastrophe or as like all or nothing. Either it's everything's got to be perfect or it's a catastrophe.
Right.
But it allows you to just say, oh, that's happening. Okay, so we just move on.
We still have to persevere.
Yeah, we make adjustments and that's okay.
And that's okay.
So then it doesn't affect your mood.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so yes. So
I wanted to touch on the reality with the, sometimes so it's, would you say it's about having a healthy balance?
It is about,
meaning that you have to, I guess what you bring into your mind has to be more impactful or more enriching, let's say.
Right. I think you would probably want the majority of the stuff that you bring into your mind
to be more enriching.
Right. So sometimes that means, limiting, and we have to be, so just like we think about what we consume in our body, what type of food we take in, we have to also think about what we feed our mind.
Right.
So if we feed our mind nonsense all the time,
this is what's going right.
Right. I mean, the outcomes will be as such. I'm just saying that you want to make sure you're aware of that, of what types of things. So even with the news, and yes, the news is important, but we know that the news typically, they have like a system of how they do this. And so the system is usually in the beginning, it's all the major news, real news content, which is usually not good. Mm-hmm. Usually the ones that are about disaster, war, all the negatives. So, we need to be aware of what's going on, but do we need to watch the news 24/7? No, probably not, because that's not going to help. That's not going to help having a positive mindset. That's not going to help us to feel better about the day. If anything, it's probably just going to take us.
That's almost like
to a different place.
That's almost like a thesis that somebody should do, like a study. People that watch the news.
There probably is something out there, maybe somewhere. If not, I wish somebody would do, because it is important. I mean, and especially for individuals who suffer from like a lot of anxiety.
Oh my God.
Because oftentimes the content, what we're watching, what we're listening to, what we're exposing ourselves to, we want it to promote well-being and not promote suffering and sadness and that type of thing, or worry.
Right.
So we have to be, so just being, mindful of that, and how we increase our knowledge in a way that's going to benefit us. Right. So like, for instance, if you feel like, if you were thinking, all right, I need to focus on self-care.
Right.
Then, looking at what's the information out there about self-care, bringing that type of information into your brain, into your mind, so that you can practice what it is you're saying you want to do.
Right. Gotcha.
Okay. So like right now I've been looking at a lot of stuff on abundance. Right.
Okay.
Abundance and intentionality and that type of stuff. So I am intentionally reading information about those topics.
Right.
You know what I mean? By who are the seminal people? Who are the people who are the experts in those areas?
In those areas, right.
And so that way I'm going to increase my knowledge, but also it's supporting and supplementing what I'm trying to do.
Right.
Or where I want to be.
Gotcha.
Okay. The next is social. And so this is where we get into assessing friendships. And so sometimes people are like, I need to be more social. We have been in with the pandemic and everything. So socialization has been, low.
Yeah.
And isolation has probably been a lot higher. So for many people, there is this need and desire
to be social.
Yeah. And sometimes that means, assessing who is in your circle, but I think of social, I also think of support. Who is your support system? Who do you trust?
Yeah.
Who do you can go to for whatever? So a lot of times we have to take an inventory of that. I had this conversation during the time of our lockdown with my niece, who is a teenager, a teen. And she actually mentioned to me about, during the time of the pandemic that she was, assessing her friendships.
Wow.
Which I thought was very, very profound for someone that young to say that.
Absolutely.
And, she talked about, her idea of, different things that had occurred. And so that caused her to take almost like an inventory.
Right.
And that's a good idea. We need to take an inventory every once in a while. It doesn't mean that you're going to, how people get on social media and they're like, I'm cutting my friend list.
Right.
If you haven't responded or if I haven't liked any of my posts, then I'm cutting out, which, might be needed also. Don't get me wrong. That may also be needed. But this is about looking at, support systems. This can also be about boundaries too, about, the dynamics of different friendships.
Right.
Or where do you need support? Or what are you letting your social support network, are you letting them know the areas where you need them? And are you there for them when they need you?
Right. Does it add value?
Right. And and do those friendships, do those friendships add value? Like, are those friendships making deposits into your life, or are they making withdrawals?
Withdrawals,
yeah. Yeah, because And granted, don't get me wrong, there's going to be withdrawals. That's okay.
But it can't be more withdrawals than deposits.
Yeah, there has to be, or constant or consistent withdrawals.
Right.
So, yes.
Reciprocity, I tell you.
Right, reciprocity.
Have reciprocity.
As much as possible.
Has to exist.
And I think, we have to be realistic, friendships, relationships, because this is also, the social is also about the relationships in your life, whatever those look like. There isn't always going to be 50-50. That can't always be the case. So that's almost like an unrealistic expectation.
Well,
but it can't always be. And it depends on what the 50-50 is. Like, people aren't always going to do for us, or can't always do for us what we do for them.
Right.
But it's that, kind of when you look at the bigger picture of where this person is in your life. Where
it should balance out. Though.
Yes. It shouldn't always be like 80-20 or
80-20. Right. Yeah.
Okay, so occupational. We get into one day. We would think, now, we know certainly there is we call it an employee shortage.
Sure.
Plenty of jobs out here, but people are just like, I'm not working.
Which I don't understand.
I'm not doing that.
I don't understand. And like, there's a bus shortage. There's a bus driver shortage.
Yeah, there's a lot of
I don't understand it. I'm like, wait a minute. Well, was there a shortage before the pandemic? No. And then, at least I didn't know about it, but now there's like a severe shortage, and I'm like, well, where those people? Where
do they go? Right, where are they working? What are they? And maybe because I know a lot of people during the pandemic, because of how jobs and how employers treated them, people decided, or they made decisions of what's more important to them, and so we know that people have also moved to different areas. But I think also too, some people have decided, I could just stay at home.
And work and try to,
or maybe not work. I don't know. You know what I mean? And there's also a different, I think, expectation of employers now. So occupationally, people are going, especially the newer generation of people going into the workforce now, which is not always about age. It can be about age, but it's more so about, that these are people that are maybe have gone back to get a degree or are getting their degree now, or are just going into the work world. So age could be a factor, but I think it's more of mindset. And the mindset now is, I want to work at a place that is contributing to my well-being versus taking away. So people are like, I'm not going to work all these hours.
Right.
I'm not taking work home. I want a place that respects my ability to have work-life balance.
Right.
These are things that my generation of workers, when I was going into the working world, which is decades ago, that was not an expectation. I wasn't thinking about work-life balance. I don't even know that I even fully used that terminology.
I'm sure they had more expectations of you than you had.
Exactly. I was just happy to have a job.
I
was happy to have finished my education at Virginia State University, shout out to VSU, and my HBCU. And I was just happy to have a job.
That's it.
And so that was it. But now people that are going into the work world are like, wait a minute, what are you offering?
This is real.
Yeah, so it's very real. And I'm not sure that employers are ready for that. So
some aren't. But I will say that, like, this stay at home thing is big.
Yeah, to stay at home.
Working from home.
Yes, because people worked from home. Right. And that's another thing, too, is, a lot of agencies, a lot of organizations are like, you can work from home, or we're working remotely. I just talked to somebody the other day. They're like, they're working from remotely permanently, and that's it. So, which is a whole other thing, you know what I mean? Yeah. And, majority of my week, I'm home, I'm working from home.
Right.
So it's been very different, but I think it also allows you to appreciate your home space.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And to want to make your home space now a space that is, good for you, right, and is, relaxing. Whereas before we were out of the house probably more than in the house. We slept right. in our homes more than right. we were actually more active in our homes.
Right. Absolutely.
And so that's shifted a lot of things. But you want to think about you may be thinking about goals for your career in this area under occupational, your professional self. How does your professional self meld with your personal self?
Let me ask you a question if I can. And this is for the midlife crisisers, I'll say.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Is it ever too late for like a career change?
I don't think so. No.
I don't think so.
And I think you see that with people. I think, as people, and, the audience may not know, but I also have my specialty areas working with older adults and, right. Individuals who are, going into retirement and that sure. adjustment, but also like our older adults, mm-hmm. our folks that are, and I don't want to throw an age on it because then people be like, wait a minute, you said I was old.
Right.
So there's the young old and there's the old.
Right.
Young old is, that 70s, and old is your people like, you're 80. And actually young old might be a little bit younger, more like the 65.
60 to 70.
So my friends out there that are in their 60s, you're not old, you're wonderful.
Right, that's right.
But the thing is, old is subjective.
It really is.
What you're only as old as you feel.
Right, absolutely.
So in terms of like adjusting to that and also doing things, whether that's a career change, whether that's reinventing yourself or what have you, right. Absolutely. I think we have to do that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people have shifted. They're like, well, wait a minute, I've left this job. Because people don't stay in jobs anymore for like 20 some odd. Yeah, right. They don't do that anymore. I mean, maybe some do, but for the majority of the workforce, no.
Right.
They don't.
It's like they constantly want new challenges.
Right. And they will leave a job if it doesn't suit them.
Right.
People have no problem with that.
Right.
So and I think that is more for employers to realize that.
Right.
No one is beholden to you. People don't have the loyalty that right. they used to have to an employer.
Which is
because employers don't have the loyalty to their employees.
Right. But
not all, maybe some don't, but a lot do not.
But the fear isn't there no more.
Or maybe some do, but
the fear isn't there. Like,
the fear isn't there. People are like, I'll just follow the job.
Oh, you don't like me? That's fine. Bye.
Yeah, that's right. I'll just leave, and then I'll leave you with everything I should have been doing,
right.
but I wasn't doing.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that factor into that. Workplace culture is a part of that.
Sure.
So what happens is now is occupationally, people are coming in with their expectations of work, of the
right.
workplace culture, of where they want to work at, and if that doesn't match,
right, then
they leave.
Yeah. Period. And listen, and no regrets.
They don't look back. No regrets whatsoever.
Don't look back. It's
and a lot of things feed into that. A lot of younger folks, in a younger generation of employees are like not necessarily completely living on their own, so they can make those decisions. It's not right. like they've got like, oh, I got, a full family I got to take care of, so I got to work in this job because I need the pay. That doesn't exactly exist. But I say occupationally, ideally we want to work someplace that we enjoy working, or we want to be doing something, because there's the job and there's the career. And I like to separate those. I say a career is a bunch of jobs.
Yep. Right.
At least today it is definitely. Right. It's a bunch of jobs that fall into a certain area, and that constitutes your career.
Right.
So, but you may have goals in this area for yourself, or whether that is, and so that may feed in with the intellectual, because you may say, well, you know what, I want to go back and get a different type of degree or a different type of certification or what have you, to be able to enhance my marketability.
Right.
So, all right. The next one.
I do want to just give a special shout out. You got Ethan J.
Oh.
Ethan J is commenting, and he's thanking you, Dr. Robin, for making him mentally strong. So let's just give a quick shout out to Ethan.
Yes.
Oh, wow. I got the wrong prop. So we're going to give a shout out to Ethan, though, and just thank him for his comment, though.
Ethan, thanks so much for listening.
Right.
So glad you're here with us this morning.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right, making you mentally strong. We're going to shout him out in a second. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. We're going to get that. We're going to get the soundboard right. Okay, but Ethan, look, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So now we're going to move into the financial. Okay.
Critical. Critical.
So the financial part is, and here's some things about finances. Like, this is an area that produces a lot of worry and stress for people. Mm-hmm. It does. Mm-hmm. It really does. A lot of people, and that's not necessarily about having money or not having money. I mean, certainly we know, people that don't have it, it is stressful. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you real quick, though,
yes.
before you articulate. Could one domain affect all the other domains?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think this might be the one.
Right, because remember I said, like, they're interconnected.
This one's the one.
Right. So the financial part, like, what needs to occur, for you to feel well, in this area of life. And so for some people, it's like, oh, I need to make more money. I need to do this. But a lot of times, people are not always looking at what their situation is. What is your situation currently? Assessing that. Right. So you can see a common thing that I'm saying throughout here is assessing.
Yes.
Looking at where you are now, where you need to be.
Yep.
And there is a plethora of books and information out here about financial stuff or whatever. But, there's also like what you call financial anxiety. There are people that just have anxiety related to money and managing money and finances. And we have to realize, like, most people, we've grown up, we have not learned how to do those, how to budget, how to manage money, about credit, all those things. And so it's not, and I mean, and even though, I've actually, kind of asked informally of like students of mine or clients of mine about, where have they learned about finances? And they might have had a little finance class in high school, but that isn't really resonating with them because they're not in it.
Right.
So that understanding.
That's when you really get the appreciation for it.
Right.
When you're in it.
Yeah, but the thing is, unfortunately, we need to get the appreciation for it ahead of time.
That's true.
We need to know as soon as, a child is able to say 1, 2, 3, we need to start showing them,
banking.
About banking, investments, all of that. And I am pleased to say that the younger generation is doing a lot more investing.
They are.
You have individuals that, their knowledge about Bitcoin crypto, and all of that, you know what I mean? And stocks and that kind of stuff.
The young boy told me he was a millionaire. I said, what are you, a millionaire? He said, yeah. I said, but you here at Burger King. I didn't understand. And it's in Bitcoin world.
Okay.
He's got some money.
Right.
But I don't know how that transfers over. But these young people, they know what they talking about.
And that's great. That's fantastic. And hopefully Bitcoin always stays viable, because if not, then that's going to be ugly. Mm-hmm. And you remember your password or whatever it is, because there's some kind of code or something or password.
You ain't got it right.
Because if you don't have that, your Bitcoin is just floating out there in space somewhere.
That's right.
So we have to sometimes be realistic about our financial situation.
Right.
And making sure, because that can just definitely cause us to have a lot of other stress,
right?
And how we spend. And so again, there's the assessing of that at the beginning, and then looking at goals in that area. You know what I mean? Whether it's paying down debt, whether it's whether you need to make more money, and how do you do that? And sometimes people, and this also sometimes pivots people into like creating their own business or ideas that you have, because that goes. So the occupational and financial goes hand in hand.
Right.
People usually go into a job saying, I know I need to make this amount of money.
Right.
But it's like, well, what are you going to do with that amount of money?
Right.
And also too, where's our money going?
Right.
What is our money going to?
Right.
And there's all kinds of formulas for that, like a percentage of only a certain percentage. I think it's like 30, no more than 30% of your money should be going to, your living expenses or rent or mortgage or whatever. But also the importance of credit. And how credit impacts us, and how credit is determined, because it can be it's very, very easy for your credit to drop.
Oh, yeah.
Not so easy for your credit to lift up, but it can be done.
Yeah, but you gotta have to work. You're gonna work harder.
You're gonna work a lot harder, right? And the reality of saving, what does that look for?
Right.
And not living paycheck to paycheck, and so again, there's a lot of information, and this is not, they're actually therapists that specialize in like financial anxiety and that type of thing. There are life coaches and therapists that work with people in this area, because it can be, I know I said life coach. I said life coach. Because, we need to give them a shout out, because this is an area where you may need some more coaching in that area. But again, it feeds into mindset,
right?
How we view money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And the importance of money, the importance of like, how we view credit cards, how we view all of that kind of stuff.
Right. The good, the bad, the ugly of that stuff.
Yes, because it can be ugly.
It can get ugly.
It can. And so the last thing is environment. And so even though we think environment is, and a part of it is, where you live, right. But also too, who is in your environment?
Sure.
Your space.
Yeah.
And so environment is wherever we are.
Yeah.
Wherever we are, that's your environment. Now there's your living space, your home right. space or whatever. But wherever we go, there's an environment that we're a part of.
Right.
And so looking at, does that environment that we're a part of in different areas of our life, does that feed into our well-being or is it taking away?
I guess that's part of that other domain too a little bit, because that's about who has access to us.
Right.
Like
exactly.
who has our ear? Who's the one that's, if I'm having a problem.
Because they can taint that environment.
Oh, they can taint it.
They can make an environment that is, sort of positive. They can make it toxic.
Very toxic, right?
And sometimes that's in our own homes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you can't always get rid of everybody.
Without realizing that it's toxic.
Right. Yes, without realizing that it's toxic.
Right.
So a lot feeds into that. So again, assessing your environment, how you want your environment to be. And, and one of the things with this is that this is, all of these areas, the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, social, occupational, financial, and environment. You want to think about the tangible versus the intangible factors that need to be considered. So the things that are like specifics, you know what I mean? Specific things we can put our hands on, and the things that are more, within us. So behavior versus mindset. Are there behavioral changes that we need to make in these areas? Or is it a mindset that we need to do? We need to shift. Do we need to reframe some thoughts within these areas? Right. Or is it a combination of both? Right. Because we know those things are interchangeable. Mindset impacts behavior.
It does.
Behavior impacts mindset.
So it does. They're all connected.
Just a couple other things just to follow up, just as we wrap up. The priorities for wellness, and, we have to keep this in mind. They may and they will change as we get older, as we mature, when we're at different stages in our life. These things will change for us. What's more important. Sometimes as we get a little older, the physical becomes more important because, we have to, more doctor's appointments, what have you. Spiritual may become more important as people get older. Financial, all of these areas, like I said, they can shift and they can change. Right. Now, why is it important for us to know about these areas? Why is it important for us to assess these areas? Because, we need to have an awareness that we're getting what we need in these areas, that we're providing for ourselves in these areas, or we're getting what we need from the people that contribute to these areas. It's always good to be, I think we all want to strive to be well. We all want to strive to have a healthy well-being. And I'm just saying that it's just not in one area. And I don't want you to think that this is like, 30 days to wellness. No, this is not a crash, a crash wellness diet. This is about a constant, and that's when we get into that momentum mindset that I was mentioning earlier. The idea that you want to stay the course because this is everybody's a work in progress. Right. And so that work means that it's constant work. We're still here on earth. Right. So we need to constantly be working to make sure that our well-being is thought about and is taken care of. And also too, with having that awareness of these areas and what you need to be well, to feel well, and to live well, it allows you to understand when you need to remove what you might need to remove that from your life that doesn't contribute to your wellness, whether that's people, habits, behaviors, patterns, etc.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, this is a lot of information today, I know. So hopefully, listen to this. Like I said, share and subscribe. Hopefully this will help our audience out there just to kind of, think about some things you might want to do a little differently to add to your journey to wellness.
Yeah. And if I could just definitely want to give Ethan his flowers.
There you go, Ethan.
There you go, Ethan.
All right.
So appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Ethan.
And then also,
and everybody that's listening today.
No, true indeed.
And
then, listen, just kudos to you though, Dr. Robin. Just how, sometimes, like I said, you hear people that kind of just talk it but doesn't walk it. So you talk, everything that you've always talked about is all about being better and being resilient and going through the different ebbs and flows and different changes. And we went through a change We started off well. Then we got some lawnmower and tree stump grinding stuff. And then now we're back at peace. And you know what?
We are.
You were as calm as the band playing on the Titanic.
Okay.
Very.
That's an awesome analogy.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You just kept.
Yeah, you just gotta go. Sometimes we have to go with the flow because we can't control the things external of us. We can't. We can only control what's within us and our response. Yep. And that's how we have to move in this world, because otherwise we will be dealing with a lot of stress and strife.
All the ebbs and flows. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's our show for today, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, please share and subscribe. Until next time, be well, be great, and be you.